The shocking truth behind the Charlie Coyle trade has been revealed, and now that the full trade details are available, we can dive into the full intentions behind why Chris MacFarland decided to send Charlie Coyle, along with some other Colorado Avalanche assets, away to the Columbus Blue Jackets, as well as how the return in the trade is going to really benefit Colorado in the near future as we look ahead to the next NHL season. Welcome into Avalanche Digest, everybody. We're going to dive deep into the Charlie Coyle trade today, the exchange that occurred very recently with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Take a look at some of the assets that we lost in the trade, but more importantly, some of the things that we gained and how they're going to help us in the very near future to have the best possible chance at making some real noise in the playoffs come this next NHL season. Before we dive into all the details, the shocking details that is, around this recent trade that sent Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood away to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Quick reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Avs Digest. Only 10% of our viewers on a daily basis that are tuning into our videos, tuning into our content, are subscribed to the channel. 89% of you are tuning in, watching Avs Digest on a daily basis, but are not subscribed to the channel. Remember, guys, this is the fastest growing source for Colorado Avalanche news and updates. Join the Avs Digest community. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you all so much for your support. We appreciate you tuning in and listening to what we have to say about the Colorado Avalanche every day. So without further ado, let's dive deep into the Charlie Coyle trade, what the assets were that we received in return, and how these assets and just the whole kind of details behind this trade is going to really benefit Colorado in the long run. So the Columbus Blue Jackets received from the Avalanche Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood, two bottom six forwards for the Colorado Avalanche, in return for Gavin Brinley, a up-and-coming prospect, a forward who only played one regular season game, I believe, with the Blue Jackets in his first season, primarily playing with their AHL affiliate, but still a really strong up-and-coming player, someone that's going to be a really good developing player as he continues to embark upon his professional hockey career. And we also received a 2025 third-round pick and a 2027 conditional second-round pick. So that 2025 third-round pick, I believe it has already been used, or it's being used as we speak, as the NHL draft is currently going on as we speak right now. But let's talk a little bit about some of the assets that we're losing in this trade, and the players that we're seeing leave the Colorado Avalanche roster and what kind of things may look like without these players anymore. So it's obviously Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood. Charlie Coyle was initially acquired during the trade deadline this last season. He was traded from the Boston Bruins in exchange for Casey Mittelstadt, who we originally acquired from the Buffalo Sabres a few years back. So we only had Charlie Coyle on the Avalanche for about 2-3 months, and he was somewhat successful as far as playoffs go, as far as his production against Dallas in that first round. He had a few points, had a goal or two playing against the Dallas Stars, but there wasn't a ton of playoff production. And as we know, Charlie Coyle is a hard worker. He's a really fast skater. He does well in that bottom six role, but he wasn't producing a ton. And in the interest of freeing up some cap space, which we'll dive into in a little bit here, in trading Charlie Coyle away, he is, a player that is someone that can be utilized, definitely, and can be put in a bottom six role, but he wasn't doing what Chris MacFarland and the Avs were hoping that a bottom six player would do. He wasn't producing enough. He was working hard, but he wasn't scoring the goals and getting on the board as much as I think the Avs were looking for in one of those bottom three roles. So they ultimately decided to send him away. And it's something that I definitely agree with. I think that what he was paying, he was somewhere around a $5 million cap hit. What we were paying for him, that isn't worth what we were seeing out of him. And so to send Charlie Coyle away and to get some good return in the trade as well, I think is a strong decision from Colorado. And then on the other side of things, Miles Wood also included in this deal. He was originally acquired way back from the New Jersey Devils. And when we first got Miles Wood, he was a very strong player. He's a big, fast, hard-working skater, someone who knows how to produce and knows how to act really well on the offensive side as far as production goes. And he fit in really nicely to start with Colorado. But then injuries started to plague Miles Wood. It started to kind of take his career on the downfall a little bit. And we didn't see him play a lot of this last 2024-25 season. And he comes into the playoffs and he doesn't produce much either, doesn't play much either as far as the production that we are seeing from Miles Wood. So he kind of went on a downward spiral as far as how he was able to produce and what he was doing in a Colorado Avalanche sweater playing for the Avs in the last few seasons. So I think that taking two players who have NHL experience and have kind of a high cap hit right now, trading them away for picks and a prospect, which we're, like I said, going to dive into in just a second here, I think it's a strong move. And I think it not only gives the Avs an opportunity to try to utilize some of these picks and grab some prospects and some players that are going to hopefully develop into really strong professional hockey players later down the road, but it also, like we talked about, frees up some space, frees up some opportunity for us to explore the free agency market, which is going to be available come July 1st in just a few days here. So it's Gavin Brinley who is the primary piece of the return from this trade from Columbus. He was drafted number 34 overall in 2023. He's only 20 years old. He was available when the Avs drafted both Callum Ritchie and Mikhail Gulyayev. I'm very sorry if I'm pronouncing that name incorrectly. But he was available when those two players got drafted late in the first round. And, you know, the Avs definitely had interest peaked in Brindley and, you know, his skill and what he offers as a young up-and-coming forward hockey player. Obviously, we know now that Callum Ritchie, a prospect that we initially drafted from the Oshawa Generals, he has been traded to the New York Islanders. We gave him up in return for Brock Nelson, who is a obviously veteran two-center who we just signed at a short-term deal playing in Colorado for the next few years. So good to see us get a little bit out of that trade. But either way, Brindley listed at 5'9", 168 pounds, played 2 years in the NCAA with Michigan, had a 53-point season in 40 games in 2024, and like I said, played one NHL game for the Blue Jackets after signing his entry-level deal. He also played 53 games in the AHL, playing for the Blue Jackets affiliate, the Cleveland Monsters, had 17 points, spent the majority of the year as a right winger, but played center a handful of games too. So a lot of variety in this player. And obviously, we're going to first see him playing for the Colorado Eagles. That'll be kind of his first landing spot. And that's going to be how we explore, you know, what he is able to do, how he's able to produce playing at the AHL level. But, you know, with some spots to fill and a young up-and-coming prospect now within our organization, it's not, you know, a completely out of the woods thought to potentially see Brindley coming up and playing on some, you know, 3-4 line production and, you know, doing, you know, some stuff actually playing for the Avs. And that's one thing that the front office likes to do. They like to bounce players up and down from the AHL quite a bit. And so potentially seeing Brindley coming up and playing for Colorado and actually getting some more NHL experience could be very interesting. We'll definitely probably be seeing him in preseason as well, which will be awesome. Like we just said, take a look at some of his stats. Playing for the University of Michigan, 40 games played. He had a 25 goal, 28 assist season for 53 points. Very strong NCAA season for Brindley. And then, like we said, one game for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then played for the World Juniors. And then, like we said as well, the AHL season playing for the Cleveland Monsters, the AHL affiliate of the Blue Jackets. 52 games, a 17-point season with 6 goals and 11 assists. So a lot of potential in this player that we have now acquired from the Columbus Blue Jackets, along with some draft picks as well, which we talked about how having some draft picks, which the Avs were kind of slim on before this trade, is beneficial as well. So we take a little bit more of a look at just what we've received now. We see Gavin Brinley come in, a second and a third round pick, and Charlie Coyle comes in, obviously plays for one playoff run, but then he goes and is traded to Columbus now. But we take, you know, a look back at a few months ago. The Avs were struggling with a $5.75 million center and a $2.5 million winger in Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood. Now these two players are off of the books, and the Avs can try to utilize a lot more cap space, a lot more money that is, and see if they can play around with spending some of that money. The Avs are clearing $7.75 million of cap space with trading these two big players away, which means they have almost $9 million in cap heading into the NHL draft, which is started yesterday and still going on today. That second round pick in 2027, obviously the lower of the two picks that the Jackets own that year. But something else that's interesting too that I think is worth noting is, a lot of people are saying that this specific draft class, this draft that we have going on right now, it's not as strong as the potential for some future drafts that we have coming up in a few years here. Obviously, the last two drafts have had some stacked classes. You have number 1 Connor Bedard, and then in the 2 years ago draft, and then last year you have Macklin Celebrini. You have other players, like Will Smith, who are getting drafted early on. So not as strong of a draft class this year, but for the Avs to have some guaranteed picks later on in some drafts down the road, that's going to be massive. And then just to close things out here, I like this take. I like the Coyle trade. We get 2 picks. Colorado desperately needs some draft picks. We secure a young, hungry prospect who has shown that both at the NCAA level and the AHL level, he can perform. We secure him. We also are desperately in need of that because we gave away a prospect in Callum Ritchie earlier on in the season at the trade deadline. So really strong trade here. I think this is going to really benefit Colorado. I think that having some draft picks is huge. And ultimately, I think that getting rid of some players who are worth a lot of money and not necessarily producing to their level of cap is also going to be really beneficial for Colorado. The Avs made some picks today in the draft. The Colorado Avalanche just heating up kind of all around in this free agency draft market. We're going to continue to cover everything around the draft, any other free agency signings, any other trades going on in the world of Avs hockey. So stay tuned here on Avs Digest. We're going to be continuing to cover everything going on in the offseason as far as Avs hockey goes. Thanks again, guys.